don't know. What's your read on George?
On who?
That's his name, right? I'm making up names now. The oldest brother, Mary's husband.
Mary's husband, Tom?
Yeah, Tom. Thank you. Why did I say George? I'm just sorry.
I feel like that was actually a man in Jane Austen's life. I feel like there was a George Austen, wasn't there? Wasn't one of her brothers?
Yeah,
George?
yeah, maybe.
I think that Tom, and this is another thing I think she does well. She writes absurdity well, because when she writes absurd characters, you love them because they aren't all absurd. And I think oftentimes that absurdity comes from a place of desperation. And I think with Tom, I think Andrew Davies carried that through really well. There is a desperation in the absurd characters that Jane Austen writes, where the absurdity comes from a place of desperation. I think Tom has to pretend everything is okay all the time, even in the carriage ride when they're riding out there. And this is Jane Austen does write it the way Andrew Davies put it in there, that Mary's the one who's saying, this is a bad thing. This is not okay. It's not okay. I have warnings. And Tom's just like, no, we're fine. Yeah. This is totally normal, totally okay. And I think that he's covering up his sheer desperation for this has to work, or essentially it means death. And so I think that I think he felt that there was a need to make everyone believe what he was doing was great and awesome because he needed them to fund. I think he overshot it because he was so desperate that he actually turned people off and turned people away. But I think his goal was, the more excited I am, the more excited people will be to come to me. But this has to work.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I felt. Did you get the same takeaway from him?
Yeah, that's basically what I was going to say about him, is that you kind of understand it. It's actually a really relatable thing, especially with a man who has a family to raise, who's the sole provider, who has a business, he has people that count on him. He has all these things coming at him, and he's feeling like and they're all about to crumble down. Like everyone is telling him, don't do this. But he's like, but we have to do this to improve upon the resort. No one's coming. And so he's like a couple paychecks from being completely broke and everything crumbling down, I think. And you understand, and Mary's like, and I love Mary. Like, she's actually one of my favorite. I mean, just her calmness and her mentorship towards Charlotte is just, so she's just a classy lady, but you can understand why she's frustrated, because she wants her husband back, right? I mean, they are definitely in love. They have 3 children. He used to be, she mentioned how he used to be a very attentive, a very great father, and now the kids barely see him, and that's frustrating for her. But I think on the same token, I can sort of understand this whole thing. It's like, so if I don't do this and we lose all this money, who's going to take care of you guys? So it's like, yeah, and it's just, but he wants to be optimistic, and he's like a used car salesman, right? he's trying to sell the product, optimistically, but he knows that it's kind of a lose-lose situation here, but he's still going to try. But he sees stuff, but it's not just that. It's not just he's trying to sell a lemon. He's trying to do something that he knows will work.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have the resources to do it. Yeah. And I think that's really frustrating when you know you can do something, but you're not able to do it. And I think everybody can relate to that, right? I know if I just had this much, or, if I had $10,000, I could do something to solve this issue. And like we all have those ideas, and sometimes they work out and you can get that. And sometimes you're trying to do too much with nothing,
Yeah. And Lady Denham it's not like she was loose with her money. So she wouldn't have given something to Tom if she didn't see it.
She's very good.
Lady Denham's not the be all end all of wisdom, clearly, because she's another absurd character. But her giving money to Tom showed that she saw the promise of what he had, whether or not he was just that he was a very good salesman. She saw promise in what he was doing. And I think for him too, it was part of him is that even once he started in motion, things might have been going well in the beginning. We don't see a whole lot of that when he first started. We just see when Jane Austen started to write from the carriage ride. But even if it was smooth sailing before then, when it started to go downhill, he didn't have another option but to go forward. I mean, he had already put his foot in it. So there was no other option but to keep going no matter what happened. And I think that was kind of what brought out his manic side, is because he understood, I don't have any other options. This is it. This is my be all end all. I can't change gears. I can't stop this project. If I stop this project, not only would they go to the poorhouse because they would lose the investment, but I don't imagine they'd be very welcome in that town if they just were like, oh,
no, he wouldn't.
Paid you for months, and now we're just going to leave you over to the job.
Isn't going just to, it's not just him going to the poorhouse, it's everyone else, Exactly. It's like half the men that live in this town, if not more. So it's in their families who don't have the resources that he inherently does have, I wonder with Lady Denham if it was a sense that, because you're right, she was pretty tight with her money. She wasn't going to give it to anyone. And I think she did believe in, what he was peddling to an extent. But I wonder if it was a situation that in the way he was the most pure in his intentions, right? He wanted to do something with the money that wasn't just about him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he didn't take a lot of that money for him.
Right. To have the resort in that area would immensely help everyone. Everyone would get better jobs and the world would, and that's what he was seeing. So I wonder if it was something, the greater good could be done from him as opposed to, someone that just wants the money because they want a bigger house and they want to make sure, they don't want to do anything. Or I'm not trying to do some. And I understand a desperation, for money as well with some of the other characters who didn't, didn't have anything and were accustomed to living a certain way. So I can understand, a desperation aspect as well.
And it's crazy to me that while Tom wanted Sydney to bring his friends around, he didn't ask his friends for money. Lord Babington, his friends from Prince Regent, he didn't ask him. No. He didn't ask Lady Susan for money. He didn't even ask Sydney for money. In fact, when Sydney offered him money, Tom said, no, you can't. So even then, you could see that there was a purity to what Tom was doing because he didn't want to rob anybody else. He wanted them to invest in the town, but he wanted to get it through means that he wouldn't feel indebted to, I think. Except for Lady Denham, who's the principal investor. But I think that's probably part of it too, is, he was indebted to her, and look at how she controlled everything. And if she got upset, then Tom started to panic. So there's likely that too, that I can't do this with every single person because I'll go insane.
Right.